Pa danas razgovaramo sa Jelenom Dimitrijević, koja je bila članica Patuljka još od 2007. godine. S obzirom da nam je ovo serijal vezan za naše ljude u inostranstvu i za to koliko im je pomagao i koliko pomaže engleski jezik u svakodnevnoj komunikaciji, nastavit ćemo na engleskom jeziku. Hello Jelena, how are you?
Hi Marianne, I'm doing well, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing well too. I'm so happy to see you after such a long time. We had a break for the COVID and everything.
Yeah, exactly. But we kept in touch via social media, so that was good.
Yeah. How old were you when you started learning English in Patuljak?
When I first started learning English in Patuljak, I was 13 years old. And I joined Patuljak because I had the intention of pursuing Cambridge certificates.
So that was your primary motivation?
Yes, yeah, that was my primary motivation, because prior to that I was learning English purely for joy and to just improve my general communication skills when I go somewhere abroad.
Did you go somewhere abroad at that time before you joined? Did you have a lot of experiences or just a few?
I would say just a few, going for some summer vacation with my family to places like Greece and Turkey. That would be pretty much it.
Okay, and then how did your motivation for learning English change over time, being high school, then later university, and now what would you say, how did the motivation for learning the language is not only English, you also speak French, how did that change?
Yeah, so I assume as I was getting older, every single year I was realizing that without a proper foreign language experience, it's hard to obtain a job and have a fruitful exchange with people from another culture. So this is how I decided to continue learning English after my first certificate I got with you, which was FCE, the first certificate in English. Yes, exactly, the B2 level. Then I continued with the group for the certificate in C1, English communication, which was basically advanced certificate in English. And at that time, I finished the first grammar school here in Kembridž, and I was sure I would like to use foreign languages in my daily life. My main goal was to use English. And then as I continued learning French in high school, I thought, okay, I could use both of them in my, let's say, work life, because at that time, I wasn't yet so sure what I was going to pursue as a career. But then when I went to university, so I studied in Belgrade, at the University of Belgrade law faculty over there, I realized that there were a lot of opportunities. For instance, if you would like to join simulation kind of scenarios, so to say, so to put what you learn into practice a bit more.
Can you try to explain a little bit what
Yeah.
that means?
Yes, because that was an interesting experience. I joined a group of students who organized Belgrade Model European Union. And this actually allowed me to put in practice how the EU institutions work. So we had a simulation of European Parliament, European Commission, Council of Europe, and I was taking part in that kind of model conference as part of the European Parliament. So I had to prepare speeches and lobby a bit with colleagues for what I thought mattered at the time. My topic was green energy at the time, so it wasn't a hot topic back in 2014, but it became over time. So yeah.
Except for let's say, normal business communication, you had a step more to lobby and to fight for your rights and for your opinions in a foreign language.
Yeah.
I guess by that time you already lost stage fright of speaking English in public or speaking in public in general.
I didn't have any stage fright when it comes to speaking in public in Serbian for sure, but I didn't have much experience when it comes to speaking in English, having like public speeches in English. So this was one of my first experiences, and I believe the audience was quite large, if I remember well, around 100 colleagues, not only from Serbia, but we had colleagues from Romania, Canada, Sweden, Germany joining us for the Belgrade Model European Union. So that was a good experience, really. And once you do it for the first time, then you just keep on doing it, I would say.
Do you think that any of the things that we that we did here in Patuljka helped you in any way?
Yes, I believe so. Especially the part when we were preparing for the speaking part of each exam. So I think that was really crucial. And we were simulating already at that stage during our classes with different colleagues from the group, right? So once I was speaking with Tiana, the other time I was speaking with Dusan, and the third time I was speaking with Olja. So you get to see what are the different styles of communication with other colleagues from the group. And once you go to the exam itself, you're never sure if the person who's going to be your speaking partner will be the person you actually know, or someone you'll just meet over there for the first and last time in your life.
And of course, in the speaking, as in life, in the speaking part of the test, you got the roles. So you have it like a game, an aim of the communication, just like in real life. Yeah.
Yes.
And like before going to, you live abroad now. Before going to that part, you went to England. We went to Great Britain together, and can you tell us about that? How did that help you in, let's say, being you today?
Yeah. So I'd say that was really a great experience. It was back in 2010. So when we went to the UK, I was part of the first group that you led to England, and alongside with other friends, I spent 2 weeks in Bournemouth in a language school over there, and stayed with the host family. And before that, we had a really good introduction into British culture by staying in London, using the tube, visiting Buckingham Palace, and just feeling the vibe of the city, really, because it's totally different. And I had to remember to look on the opposite side of the street, not like among other things,
and to find your way in the underground and stuff like that. Read the maps
and mind the gap in the underground for sure.
Yeah, London. Did you go back to London again anytime?
Not yet.
After that, not yet.
Not
it's on your bucket list.
It's on my bucket list, and I would say it's one of my next professional steps to go there from time to time in order to establish a better collaboration. As I work in HSBC, and HSBC is basically a bank, and the acronym means Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. It was one of the first colonial banks that actually started in Hong Kong, but had really strong ties with the imperial system of basically United Kingdom nowadays. So yeah.
So most of your communication at work now is in English or in Polish?
So my functional line manager is British. So it means that on a daily basis I communicate with her in English. All of my tasks are done in English. When it comes to any writing, joining any conference calls and so on, I need to perform all those tasks in English. when it comes to the informal communication, as I'm part of the team which is based in Poland, I communicate with other team members in Polish.
Was it difficult to learn Polish?
Yes, it was a lot more difficult than learning English and than learning French, which might come as a surprise. But
How come? Because the things are similar but they're different, or?
Exactly, there are a lot of false friends when it comes to comparing Serbian to Polish. So the term I learned from English about false friends did help me to understand if the word sounds the same, it doesn't actually mean the same.
Okay.
And the second thing is that the orthography of Polish language didn't go through a reform like we had in the 19th century in Serbia. So that's the part I found difficult. So for instance, if you would read some documents in Polish from the 16th century, it would be written in 80% or even 90% of the cases in the same way as nowadays.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
so there hasn't been a big change.
There hasn't been a big change when it comes to their orthography, because it's part of the Polish tradition, culture, and there were certain attempts to go through such change. However, the tradition remained, so it's quite complicated when it comes to writing. But now I'm quite comfortable with it as well, as I've been living in Poland for 6 years now.
Oh, already?
Already, yeah.
So going back to the proficiency test, you know, what's the people's reaction when you say that you have the top level of knowing English like a native speaker? What's their reaction when you say to them?
I would say I realized the biggest advantage of having a certificate of proficiency in English during my university studies, and which consequently followed my first job applications. So I think the language certificates in English as well as in French definitely helped me make a difference when it comes to scanning candidates' CV, because you need to stand out one way or another. So this is definitely something that was a huge benefit for me. Coming from a non-European Union member country, it's very important to have certain traits that distinguish you from other candidates. Because when I first moved to Poland in 2016, I definitely needed a work permit over there. And when you need a work permit in an EU country, you really need to be a good candidate that the employer will make sure to obtain the work permit for. And I was just after my studies, so I didn't have much life or work experience at the time.
Yeah. Also, I think, you know, in these steps we learn to scan, to skim, we learn to draw the conclusion what the speaker wanted to say but didn't say, what he or she implied, and that is also something that you have to, even now when you're writing a report, you need to be really concise to your boss, or you need to make a point of view in a polite way, or compare two ideas or two options, and these are the life skills basically in the text that we also learn somehow.
Yeah, you just reminded me of something. I can definitely ensure you that whenever I'm writing emails in English, I have a structured way of thinking. And I do believe this is thanks to the preparation I've been through for each of these exams. Because for each of the Cambridge certificates, as well as others, there's a limit of, there's basically a word count that you need to focus on, and also making a point is very important, because if you go a bit out of context, you lose your points when it comes to the exam, and when it comes to life, you lose focus.
It is completely different from our point of view how to write essays in normal Serbian school, and you know.
It's descriptive, and this is concise and structured. So I would say it's as precise as social sciences can go when it comes to this way of thinking, preparing for exam, and so on.
You know, how do you feel when you meet foreigners now? It was in Krakow and now in Warsaw, speaking different languages. I guess you don't feel anymore any fear or any unease or whatever to just switch from one language to another?
No, and it definitely comes in a natural way to me now. I don't believe this was the case when I was first preparing for these exams or when I first moved to Poland. But when I look at myself now, I can be in a situation I'm speaking to a colleague of mine in English, another friend who is only Polish speaking is right next to me, so I need to translate almost simultaneously, which is sometimes not so easy, but it's absolutely doable because we need to switch from one language to another, which is what we experience in bilingual environments and families and so on. And then oftentimes during a regular day, I speak in 4 languages. And why so? Because given that my husband is Polish, we speak in Polish at our place, because this is how we agreed it would be for the time being, because it was very important for me to just learn the language, have a good accent, be able to blend in properly, and communicate efficiently when I go to a bakery or wherever.
Sure. Like everyday things.
Exactly. And when it comes to work, I also have certain business partners who are based in France. So it happens that twice a week or even 3 times a week I have a call which is conducted in French. Recently I had a training which I led in French for colleagues based over there.
So for sure you need to prepare.
I need to prepare a bit, but I only prepare bullet points. I don't prepare the full speech.
Sure. After such a long time.
A long time. Which is, I think this is one of the things I got from my time in Patuljka, is basically that the habit of practicing a foreign language. If you do it for a number of years, the way you need to prepare for a speaking part, whether it's a conference, training or an exam, it just comes naturally, but after a number of years. So it's very important to
Well, I agree with you, because this is like my message most of the time. You can improvise, but first you need to practice and practice and practice a lot.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how you met your husband? That's an interesting story. Also linguistic wise.
Yeah, for sure. So I met my husband back in 2015. We were both on a law summer school in Paris. And
you just see the month.
Yes,
I've
seen
the
very
tower.
Very thoughtful of you. The program I pursued there was entirely in French during 3 weeks. I was basically studying, we were both studying about civil law concepts in French. And at the end of that school, we also had exams that had to be written in French, because we had only the written part over there, but actually those exams were essay based and not kind of test, so it wasn't that simple.
So the first language you started communicating in was English or French or both?
It was actually at the time it was French. So that's interesting, because none of us was a native French speaker. So my husband is a native Polish, I'm a native Serbian speaker, but then the language of the environment where we met was French. So it came quite naturally to us to continue speaking in French. So we kept on speaking in French for 2 years, which seems.
But you were separated.
Yes, at the time. Yeah. Actually, we were separated for 1 year, and then when I moved to Poland, we continued speaking in French for another year. If you ask me why we did so, I'm not sure I can explain it. It just came from the environment where we met. We were quite fluent both in French at the time, and it was the language we both practiced the most.
I think it was like the language of love from the beginning, and then later it turned into another one, just continuing the relationship, I guess.
Most likely. And then of course there are certain ambitions that each one of us has, which is okay, but I live in Poland, why we keep on speaking in French. So this is when we decided to switch to Polish. However, it didn't happen overnight.
Sure.
Yeah, so
that's really important actually to point out.
Because it's very important to point out, I believe, how adults learn a foreign language in a new environment. And from my experience, it is basically being part of a community that speaks in a language that is entirely foreign to you, like Polish at the time was for me. So for instance, whenever I was taking a tram to commute to work, I was listening people speaking in public transportation, basically.
Everyday language.
Yeah, just everyday language. And my next step was to learn Polish with a native, but not necessarily my husband, because I wanted to have a professional language teacher. So the teacher I found, actually, she is Katarzyna. She is a Serbian teacher at the Jagiellonian University over there in Krakow. And I met her through some translation work that I asked her to help me with, from Serbian to Polish when it comes to my diplomas and so on. And I just thought, okay, she's a nice person. I would like to learn Polish with her. Perhaps I will ask her. And when I heard that her dog's called Tesla, then I had absolutely to ask her. I kept on learning Polish for a year with her. And then I took a certificate over there as well, because I believe I'm used to doing certificates after so many years.
You're a nerd.
Yeah, exactly.
What does your husband do now? You work in a bank, for a bank. What about him?
My husband works in a consultancy firm. It's one of those so-called big four firms that specialize in audit mostly. He's a specialist in anti-money laundering. And I work in a bank, in a department which deals with regulatory compliance. And I think this is one of the things I got into, thanks to the combination of law studies, which I finished, and the linguistic capabilities, which I tend to develop. And I will continue doing so throughout my entire lifetime.
Excellent. And also Patuljka, the experience in Patuljka brought you, except for being like independent, not having this stage fright, I think actually, when people say, do you like switch to another language and like this one gets shut down, I think, or shut out, I think actually all these languages live in our heads simultaneously. Just like in a computer, you have a lot of programs working in the background, So I think
open tabs.
like open tabs, something like that. So I think it's really, like a myth to say that it's only one working in your head. Maybe at one point it's the main one, but all the others are there more or less somehow in some combination. So apart from your linguistic experience, thanks to the linguistic experience outside of Patuljka, you met your husband because you were open to, explore other countries, other possibilities.
Cultures, yeah.
What else did you get? And it happened last night. I just tried to remind you.
I got the offer from you to be in this video. That's what you mean.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant that you met your best woman, maid of honor.
Exactly. I was the maid of honor last night. apologies, I thought you asked me concretely.
No, it doesn't matter.
Thanks to being part of Patuljka, I got to meet a really great group of people. With some of them I stayed in such a close contact that yesterday I was the maid of honor at my best friend's wedding. So not only I was the maid of honor during the civil ceremony, but also during the church ceremony, Orthodox church ceremony, which was my first time and a great experience. So yeah, I would say that my time in Patuljka definitely connected me with a like-minded person, not only one, but many. And then I can also mention that most of the children at the time that joined Patuljka shared the same values. So it was all basically about, okay, we are keen to be able to communicate with people from other countries, from other cultures, religions, and I think the time in Patuljka in particular made me a more open-minded person, for sure. Yes.
How would you say you both stayed in contact with me? Why was that?
I believe it's also based on the shared values theory, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
And I would also say.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah, of course. Once I moved to Belgrade back in 2012. Yeah. I still had to pass. I wanted to pass my CP, Certificate of Proficiency in English. So it was very important for me to stay in touch with you and let you know what the results were, how it went for me, and so on. And also, I would say the experience we had together during our summer school in the UK was something that
so many anecdotes.
And that was definitely something that made me realize I would like to stay connected with you for
likewise
for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I'm so happy for that.
Yeah, very much. Not sure if there was something else I may have missed. There are many things. So
sure, yeah. I think it's like the mutual feeling of being open and exploring that we have, and not only the languages but everything in life. And I do like young, prosperous women or girls, married, not married. So yeah, that I think that's kind of also connects us, and like I think the age difference is not so big. So yeah, that's also another thing. And the last question for you is the Matthew's view on Serbia. He was really actually blending in last night as much as he could, into our crazy kind of weddings and very extrovert
mentality,
setting and mentality. For an introvert, I think it's a bit difficult.
Yeah, for sure. So I have to say this was the first time my husband danced kolo, if it's possible to say in that way, because I've never said it in English before. And how so? When it comes to Poland in particular, the music from the Balkans and Serbia is very popular over there.
Oh.
As well as some movies. So for instance, any Kusturica made movie is a huge hit in Poland.
I heard the same about Russia. So
Yeah, I can imagine. Of course, there are certain things that my husband isn't a huge fan of when it comes to Serbia, but we both focus on the good things.
Of course, I'm not a fan of everything in Serbia, so I'm
Yeah,
sure you aren't either.
I mean, no country is ideal, right?
Sure.
So that's for sure. And I would say that thanks to the fact that he was already very much blended into Serbian culture when it comes to movies, music, and mentality as well, given that he has been visiting Serbia for weeks or sometimes months since 2015. The wedding yesterday was just the cherry on the top. And he really enjoyed the church wedding that he saw it in person himself for the first time. Exactly. Before that, he was exploring how it looks with the crowns and so on from YouTube videos.
Yeah,
because that's fascinating for foreigners, I would say.
What I think also is when it comes to foreigners, I think the best approach is not to say we are the best, we are the only, we are the best, because every country is the best in a way. So I think that's like when you are open-minded for good things and bad things, I think in every nation and culture and situation, I think that gives them that kind of the foreigners relax. Otherwise, I think they feel pressured. Like, you know, we have to say that this is the best, although probably we don't think inside, and then they kind of act out, and that's not really nice. What I really saw is like a couple in love, and you know, really sharing as much as they could, and like it was important for him to make you happy and be happy at the same time, and the culture was just, I don't know, unimportant, you know. So I think I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Anything you want to add?
I would like to add, if anyone is still having doubts, either from a parental perspective or from a student perspective, when it comes to learning a foreign language, it can only bring you benefits, really. Even if you would like to learn English or any other language Patuljka has to offer, only for work-related purposes, it's going to bring you a lot more than you would expect. Because you start with the learning part, and then actually a whole new set of opportunities opens for every single person.
Okay. Well, I feel that way too, so I managed to convey that. I'm so happy. Thank you.